I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
You and I have unfinished business, and not a goddamn fucking thing you've done in the subsequent 4 years, including getting knocked up, is gonna change.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 16 of Formidable Opponents, a show that pits three people who have known each other virtually their entire lives in a series of conversations as we argue what is the best in a variety of fun, engaging, and critical pop culture topics that we all debate about. I'm Randall, and with me always, Bob and Joseph, and today's topic is best fight scene. Before we start, we want to acknowledge our sponsor, Cerebral Digital LLC, a digital marketing firm based out of San Antonio. They have everything from website design, social media management, and graphic design. Perfect for small businesses on a budget. Their specialty is helping those startup businesses. Cerebral Digital, a bigger, better, smarter, and more affordable way of marketing. Look them up on social media. So before we start off, I want to say hi to Bob and Joseph. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good, man. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Excited about this one. First of all, I want to start off by saying, listen, you mothers. Now, before we go, today we're talking best fight scenes. And to me, guys, there's nothing better than a fight scene. It's adrenaline pumping, heart racing action. A great fight scene not only builds tension, it adds to pacing. It pushes the story, and most of all, it keeps the audience engaged. A good fight gives us information, and it serves the purpose of taking us to the next section of the movie. It's the bridge that keeps us emotionally invested, and oftentimes it contains the conclusion and ties up all the loose ends. A great fight scene has to be different. Unpredictable moves, no patterns, and even a bit of comedy. The oh shit, did that just happen moments? You know, the moments that can't be emulated and people will forever reference in the scene. Lastly, there has to be give and take. A one-sided fight isn't fun to watch, even when you know who the victor will be. There has to be a struggle, drama, and our hero has to work for it. So guys, let's talk a little bit about some great fight scenes. What do you think a great fight scene has to have?
I think a great fight scene has to have some kick-ass one. It doesn't need the sound effects. It needs to have some, and unfortunately, we know it's a movie fight, so it's going to have some great choreography. You're going to have to, nowadays at least, hopefully it's not done too much in front of a green screen like we'll see in a lot of movies, but we're not going to talk about those. So hopefully the stunt work is good. Hopefully the actor's done some time. The actor or actress has done some time, which they usually do the prep work to get into, some kind of fighting shape, and just really kind of making it real, sell the thing, nothing too cheesy. I mean, it depending on what kind of message you're trying to push out, at least for the fight scene, whether it's a sports movie. I don't think we're going to talk too much. We're not probably not going to mention really any sports fights because that's in a category on its own.
So we're not going to talk twins.
We're not going to talk Karate Kid. As long as it's got a good flow and some good back and forth. If it gets too gruesome, then I think we might lose the audience. You're looking to sell the story forward, and hopefully, if you're going to have a fight scene in it, it's something that sets up a larger portion of the story or brings back an origin of the story's about. What about you?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't think a great fight scene should take place in front of a green screen. I'm not a big fan of that.
You love the Avengers movies.
Yes, but I mean, those are action adventure comic.
Action
you know
adventure.
what I mean? And we're not talking about best battle scene. We're talking about best fight scene. So I'm thinking of hand-to-hand combat. Hand-to-hand combat. That climactic moment in the movie where, you're kind of at the edge of the seat and you're like, oh shit, it's going down. Finally, these two guys are going to fight, or these two people are going to, let's see who survives. It's got to have that kind of vibe. It's got to put you on the edge of your seat, and it's got to be exciting. It should be one of those points in the movie where you're like, fuck yes, finally. So that's my take on it. I think there's a lot of great choices out there. There's a lot of great fight scenes out there. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of all the great action stars. I know we have done a show on best action star of all time. And, there's a lot of great scenes out there and a lot of great fight scenes out there. And I'm really excited to talk about them today.
So speaking of those fight scenes, let's talk a little bit about our honorable mentions. What are some of your honorable mentions, guys? What didn't quite make the cut, but you'd like to talk about?
Well, one in particular for me, and this one, there's too many. You'd have to go back and look at, a lot of the older movies, and I'm not going to mention some of them because, they might be some of your picks, so I don't want to spoil them. But one I'm just going to say in particular, and this is one that I almost went with. There's a real awesome fight scene in Red. Have you ever seen the movie Red with Bruce Willis and John Malkovich?
Yeah, great movie. Yeah.
Great two movies. Yeah, both of them. There's this scene in the first one where Bruce Willis's character is fighting with I can't remember his name, the actor, but it's dubbed the bad move grandpa scene. This fight between the two of them in the CIA office. The only reason I didn't go with it's a great fight scene. It's awesome. It kicks ass. It's got great, they play off each other real well, and it has a good song playing in the background. It doesn't necessarily have to have a good song, but it does. It went with the scene.
It's thumping.
Yeah, no, I didn't. The only reason I didn't pick this song is because the fight scene was I think it was 2 minutes. To be honest with you, it was 2 minutes of great action. And another one,
prom night.
Exactly. Another one that I will mention. I'll mention it later because it's kind of a segue to my pick. But how about you, Bob?
I mean, there's a lot of great ones. A couple that stood out to me. Sho'nuff versus Bruce Leroy in The Last Dragon.
That's a good one.
That's a great pick. It's actually one that I almost chose. It's a great scene and a great build up and a great fight. Busta Rhymes versus. I look like Busta Rhymes. I know
it's my Converse.
I know it's not. Yeah. Am I the baddest? Sho'nuff. I love that part. One of the scenes, another brutal and hyped up scene was from Raging Bull when Jake LaMotta fights Sugar Ray Robinson.
Yeah.
And and LaMotta's egging him on, hit me, and he's hanging onto the rope, and Sugar Ray Robinson's just beating him down, brutally bruising him and making him bleed. And at the end of that, he's barely standing, and he's like, "You never got me down, Sugar. You never got me down." Fucking amazing scene. Yeah. Scorsese, one of my favorite directors. It's just a great fight scene. Bob Barker versus Adam Sandler, man. I love that one. I think it was hilarious. I mean, nobody would have seen that coming out of that movie, having Bob Barker knock the shit out of Adam Sandler on the golf course. It was pretty awesome. What about you, Ren? Any good picks from you?
Those are really good picks. I have
Thank you. It's over.
You got it, man. You got it. The final fight scene, I don't think either of you have watched this movie, is a movie called My Bodyguard with a young Matt Dillon and Adam Baldwin, the guy who played Gomer Pyle in Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, yeah. Was this on Betamax?
Yeah, this was on Betamax. This was at the time on HBO. I think it came out in HBO had 5 movies. It was this one, Eddie and the Cruisers, Caveman, Super Fuzz, and I don't know, the random 5th one, but there was maybe 4 or 5 movies on HBO rotation. This was one of them. And in this one, we get a twofer. It stars a young Matt Dillon and Adam Baldwin, as I mentioned, who are both in separate fights at the end. It's from 1980, as I mentioned. Great pacing. It's very raw. It looks like a very just 16-year-old kids fighting, but it looks very true. Oftentimes it's clumsy, but it's teenagers. And it's more realistic than it is stylish. I think this was the first fist fight scene I'd ever watched. So for some reason, it's very endearing to me, I guess, just for that reason, I guess. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Michelle Yeoh, and Zhang Zi. I think that's the way you pronounce it, or Zi Yi. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, dude.
Great
awesome scene.
Yes, very stylistic. The bathroom brawl in the Warriors versus the Punks, which I know took 2 weeks to film. If you haven't seen it, there's a guy that looks like Jim Carrey on skates, and it's a 1979 movie.
Such a great movie.
Yeah, fuck yeah, Warriors come out and play. Eh? That's
I love that movie.
They got some good fight scenes on that one, but that one I think was the best. Another bathroom fight scene. The bathroom fight in The Bourne Ultimatum. I thought that was great too. And we could do best bathroom fight scene, I think, for the next episode.
Yeah, no shit, right?
The market battle in Legend of the Drunken Master with Jackie Chan. I mean, you can't say fight scenes without Jackie Chan.
Exactly.
Choreography, his own stunt team. I mean, Jackie Chan's amazing. So we have to mention Jackie Chan. And lastly, I picked the fight scene from Bad Boys. It's not the Bad Boys you're thinking about. This movie stars Sean Penn and Esai Morales as 2 juvenile delinquents battling it out. It doesn't have a lot of YouTube views. It's difficult to find, but check it out. If you type in Bad Boys 1983, everybody say kill final scene, you'll find it. This movie is intense. Sean Penn plays a juvenile delinquent who kills his arch rival's little brother in a vehicular homicide, but it was incidental. And so to get to the juvenile to get to jail, I guess you could say, Isai Morales does something very malevolent to Sean Penn's girlfriend, which I won't talk about. But at the end, there's a huge fight scene. And Sean Penn, of course, he was coming off Spicoli. He became a big star. I don't know why. I'm going to kind of take you guys for a loop. I don't know why Isai Morales didn't become a big star. I thought he was great in this. I thought he was great in La Bamba. He's great in Ozark. I don't know if you guys watch Ozark on Netflix.
Yeah.
I always worry about Isai Morales. I was watching the Selena series. I don't know if you guys have watched Selena on Netflix. It's terrible. Bad wigs, bad green screen. And I was a little worried because by season 2, about the 3rd or 4th episode, I was like, oh shit, if Isai Morales comes out playing a record producer, I'm going to be kind of sad because he's such a wasted talent. I thought Isai Morales should have had a bigger career. And maybe that's an episode we'll talk about, but great fight scene if you haven't watched it. Bad Boys, Sean Penn and Isai Morales.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that the show is bad, but you're on season 2.
I am. What the hell's wrong with you? I won't spoil the ending, but
oh, we know how it ends.
Jesus.
How could you do that, sir?
It's one of those shows, and man, I wish I could do a whole episode on the Selena series. It's really bad. It's really bad, and it's very how can I put this? It's all about the father and the brother. It's very braggadocious. It's very self-serving. It seems like a money grab, but man, I don't know. You can't stop watching it. You watch like the first 5 episodes and you're like, I got to see how fucking worse it gets. And
after season 8, man, I just couldn't
do it anymore.
After there's one scene where like they're in Monterrey, Mexico, and they're like, there's 100,000 people out there, and you go out there, it looks like your fucking uncle's ranch. There's like 12 drunk guys out there. It's like so low budget. It's a fucking horrible show.
I'm sure our friends in France are gonna be like, I thought this was best fight scene, and they're talking about Selena.
Don't fight your love don't for Selena. All right, getting back to best fight scene. Oh, I'm gonna have to take a while. We're gonna have to. We need more sponsors for moments like this. So if you're out there and you're interested, please hit us up. I'm gonna go first and talk about the fight scene I chose as best fight scene. I went with the sunglasses fight in They Live. First of all, I just want to say fighting over a pair of sunglasses doesn't sound so excited, but if you watch this movie, it's just amazing. Roddy Piper had been in wrestling for nearly 20 years, since he was about 15 years old. If you guys want to check something cool out, not the Selena series, check out A&E biography on Roddy Piper. He's come from a very tough background. So Roddy Piper, as y'all know, was a great wrestler, and he was a good seller. And by seller, I mean that he would make his opponents look very good. If you want to watch a brutal, vicious Roddy Piper match, check out Starrcade 83 against Greg. It's a dog collar match versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. I mean, it's just bloody mess. So Roddy Piper was at the point in his WWF career where he was no longer the top heel. He had wrestled Mr. T. Now in WrestleMania 3, he was fighting adorable Adrian Adonis. And if you guys want to watch a site, Google adorable Adrian Adonis, and you'll probably not look at a sun hat and sundress the same way again. So after WrestleMania 3, John Carpenter meets Roddy Piper. Keep in mind at the time, Roddy Piper was no longer the biggest heel. Andre the Giant was now the main eventer. Ted DiBiase was coming up. Roddy Piper was more mid-storyline at this point. And Roddy Piper asked Vince McMahon for a break. And Vince McMahon, of course, doesn't want to, which is ironic because Vince's father fired Hulk Hogan when Hulk Hogan said, I want to go film Rocky 3. I got this part as Thunder Lips, and I want to do it. And Vince's father said, if you go and do this movie, you're fired. And sure enough, he went and did the movie. Best decision of his life. He was fired. So Vince McMahon tells Roddy Piper, don't do this movie. We got some WWF movies coming out. Of course, they did like the real shitty No Holds Barred with the Zeus and Hulk Hogan. And Roddy Piper says, John Carpenter wants to cast me in his next movie. I mean, John Carpenter, and what John Carpenter had to say about Roddy Piper, unlike most Hollywood actors, Roddy has a life written all over him. Carpenter was impressed with Roddy Piper and how he just played a real person. He wasn't this great looking guy. He wasn't a bad looking guy either. He just looked like a real person. And he also cast Keith David. Keith David is the other person we need to talk about. We talked about him during our funniest scene as the hilarious father. And There's Something About Mary. We love him for that. Carpenter was impressed with Keith David's performance in The Thing and needed someone who wouldn't be a traditional sidekick, but could hold his own. And so why I love this scene, I mean, holy shit, just try on the sunglasses. You know, I mean, he wouldn't try on the fucking sunglasses. He did They fought for 5.5 minutes. This scene could have ended like in 10 seconds. You know what? Maybe try these guys. This guy's really adamant on me trying on the sunglasses, but he's like, fuck, I don't want the sunglasses. And they went on for 5.5 minutes kicking each other's ass. And of course, I said part of being a great wrestler that Roddy Piper was and all his experience, you have to make the other guy look good. And if you watch this scene, Piper is a professional choreographer when it comes to fighting, and he makes Keith David look good. I mean, they're doing suplexes, they're throwing punches, knees. I mean, it's just a dirty, all in all, grind out fight. And what I love about this fight is that it looks completely realistic. If you were to watch a fight on the street, it would, there's some stylistic stuff, of course, that wouldn't happen, but it was true to just the rawness. There's just one camera spinning around them. They're on the floor, they're up against the wall, they're beating the shit out of each other. The fight scene has been lauded by stunt choreographers, martial artists, and famed directors. It's raw, it's brutal, it's honest. And I love the movie trope when one guy plays the, hey man, look, I don't want to hurt you, but if I have to, I'll fucking do it. And Roddy Piper played that to the hilt. It's a metaphor for life. Put on these sunglasses so you can see what I'm looking at through my lens. And just every time you think it's going to end, it goes on. You know, one guy gets the shit beat out of him, looks like it's over, but then the other guy gets up and starts beating the shit. There's a scene, I think my favorite part of the scene, Roddy Piper tries to hit Keith David with a 2x4, a wooden board, and he misses, and he realized, oh fuck, I could have killed this guy. So he's like, hey man, look, I'm sorry. So Keith David's character picks up a bottle, breaks it so he could stab him, but he breaks the whole fucking bottle instead of having a shard to stab him with. And so Roddy Piper laughs, and then 2 seconds later, Keith David's flying at him and tackles him. And it's just a great just battle back and forth. You watch it, it doesn't look like it's choreographed. It looks very just raw, very detailed and specified in terms of, you know, how the hits are coming across. And the best part about it is South Park, Jimmy and Timmy, when they mimicked it, I thought that was pretty cool. They did a shot for shot. But guys, what do you think about this scene? I don't think any scene beats this as far as rawness, as far as two likable people kicking each other's ass, and the comedy of it, because they're fighting over a pair of sunglasses, essentially. What do you guys think?
Yeah, man. Going back to it, They Live is such a great little cult classic movie. When you chose this scene, I was like, oh, that's badass. I didn't even think about that. It wasn't one of the first scenes that popped in my head when we're talking about the best fights. Having watched it over and over again all this week, man, it's a really, really great scene. Keith David and Roddy Piper working against each other, like seemingly oddballs. Like you said, just put the damn glasses on, man. What the fuck? Turn on the goddamn glasses.
He almost stomps on him too.
I was referring, it was raw, but it seemed pretty choreographed. Like you said, Roddy Piper was, he choreographs a lot of his fights in his wrestling business. So, it was decently choreographed, but yeah, I think they worked just so well together that it worked. The scene, I did laugh when you talked about the 2x4 scene. Yeah, he swings it. I think he apologizes because he hits Keith David's windshield in his car and breaks his windshield.
Okay, yeah.
And then he's like, oh shit, look, man, I'm sorry. And that's when Keith David gets all pissed off and trying to crack some bottle. The one thing I can say, and I always have to bring up that one point because we are arguing against it, there's way too many nut shots. There's way too many aggressive nut shots.
There's a few of them, yeah.
Keith David has him trapped on the floor and fucking knees him into the groin like 8 different times. I was like, damn, I think that was a little too much. The glasses. So this is the whole point. The glasses. This whole scene was the glasses, right? Just put the fucking glasses on. These glasses are important. They help you see, the aliens and the truth that's out there. Right before they're about to fight, Roddy Piper, he tosses him to the side. He's like, okay, fuck it. He just tosses him and he tosses him to the ground before they're about to fight. Like, if they're so goddamn valuable, if you want Keith David to wear these glasses, why the fuck would you just toss him to the side and just toss him to the floor before you fight? Like, that kind of threw it off a little bit, based on the whole context of the scene. That's one thing that bothered me about it. There's not too much. Like I said, it's good. It's a lot of back and forth, fighting back and forth. But that did bother me a little bit, that the whole point of the scene is for Keith David to try on the glasses so he could see what's going on in the world. But right before they fight, Roddy Piper just tosses them to the side like if they're kind of worthless. So it kind of confused me. I think it takes away a little bit.
Honestly, dude, yeah. I don't remember the nature of their friendship, but they are friends from what I believe. It's been a while since I've seen the movie. I didn't get a chance to watch it fully. I just kind of watched the scene. So Piper's character's name is Nada, or is that what his name? Nada needs his friend Frank to put on the sunglasses to see the truth. Obviously, the friend refuses, as we've both said, and I mean, as you both said. I don't understand why he won't try on the sunglasses. If one of you asks me to try on some sunglasses, or like to put, hey man, just put these fucking sunglasses on, I'm like, okay, fuck it. Like, what the hell's going? It's 2 seconds of your life, but he refuses. Didn't understand that part. I mean, yeah, I'm sure when he did finally put him on, he was like, shit, I could have avoided this ass beating if I had just put on the sunglasses. I mean, not that he got his ass kicked, but anyway, there's no music, which I think is great. There's no, any kind of score going on in the background. Your pick and my pick really don't have any music. Well, yours specifically does, and I know that. Just city sounds. I think Bob's, we'll get into his, has some ominous tones, and there's nothing wrong with it.
I think it can add to it though. The science is good. Sometimes those little sound effects and subtle background music can kind of build the tension and stuff like that.
And I'm not knocking it. It works. It worked for this scene.
That this scene actually does work without the music. Granted, they're fighting in the alley or whatever.
What is a good knee to the ball soundtrack? I don't know. I can't think. But
you're the best. F7, baby. You like pina colada.
So you don't. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I wrote that in my notes. You didn't need to have "You're the best around" playing in the background to be a good movie, to be a good scene. There's plenty of brutality. It's actually pretty tame when you consider the violence in some of the movies of the 80s, but I think a lot of that was more gun violence. So this is pretty cool. Just a straight up knuckle brawl. It's comedic. I thought it was hilarious when Frank's like picking him up and he's like, I tried to tell you, like, you think the scene's going to end right there, but then he says, it doesn't. He fucking punches him down to the floor. And because I first, like, when I first thought, I was like, oh, it's over. He's like, come on, buddy. I told you, like, that's and then boom, right back to the fucking floor. And then which sets up the part that great, like I said, it's comedic, that funny line, "You dirty motherfucker."
I love to mention. I love how Keith David's like, "You dirty motherfucker," but when they're on the floor, he bites his hand.
Tries to go to he tries to go. Well, this is why he got kneed in the nuts so many times, because Piper tried to hit him in the nuts, so I called him a dirty motherfucker. I counted. He knees him 5 times in the nuts. I was like, that's 1, 2, 3. That's
3 too many.
That's 3 too many. Yeah.
How do you not block your nuts after like the second one? I don't know, but I mean, this is my scene. Paralysis.
Afterwards, I was like, dude, I would have, after 2, I would have been dead. I wouldn't have been able to get up. I don't know how. And those are hard nut shots with fucking knees. It's entertaining as fuck. But it's only because I think it's Rowdy Piper, and I'm not saying this is a bad scene. I love this scene. John Carpenter knew what he was doing. He said, we have him, let's fucking use him. I mean, it was Rowdy Piper, it was Roddy Piper. How could you not put him in a situation where he's a good actor? He actually did really good. And like you mentioned,
great casting.
Choreography was great. This is what he did for a living. So it definitely sold it. My only beef with it is, I guess, a little slow. To me, it's like a double-edged sword. And the sunglasses, like, those had to have been some durable fucking sunglasses. As many times as they were thrown around or banned.
Hey, Rand, let me ask you a question. Do you think that there was maybe both y'all can answer. You think that there was a little too much, professional wrestling choreography in there?
I counted 2 wrestling. There was a gut wrench suplex and a belly to back suplex. Other than that, do you guys see anything else? I mean, might have been a knee lift, but I think everything was pretty standard for a back alley brawl. I don't think there was too many wrestling.
I've never seen a suplex in a back alley brawl, but that's pretty. But I mean, like, it's Roddy Piper, so I guess nobody talked about the most impressive thing out of this whole scene. At the very beginning of it, Keith David's like, "Here, a whole month's pay," and he throws a cash, and it falls into his little box, little box that he's holding in his hand from like 12 feet away. So he hit it right in the money. It was one take, so I don't think it was meant for that to happen.
That must have been some heavy cash, because it just flew in there. It didn't fly off into the wind.
My favorite line in the scene is, "Partner, life's a bitch, and this one's in heat." So I mean, it was just a testosterone driven just a guy scene. Like John Carpenter said, let's put these guys out there, give them some clever lines, let them brawl. People are going to love it because this movie was about, it was sci-fi. It wasn't necessarily an action movie or sort of a grindhouse. It was just, let's get these guys out there. We got Roddy Piper. We know he knows what to do. Keith David fucking toe to toe for him, for a guy who is not known for fight scenes. And that's why I love it. I thought they complemented each other beautifully. And I don't think it's talked about enough. It's just a great scene, man. And I just enjoyed watching it.
Really good scene.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from going with a professional wrestler and somebody in Keith David who's not really known for his fights, transitioning over to my pick, well, we have probably two of the biggest names in martial arts of all time.
Daniel LaRusso.
Daniel LaRusso is going to fight, baby. I decided to go with Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris in The Way of the Dragon. Two of the biggest names in martial arts, specifically at that time. Chuck Norris was the reigning and defending U.S. middleweight karate champion at that point in time during the movie 1972. And of course, Bruce Lee, was the biggest martial arts star in the world at that point in time. So, this created probably the most anticipated martial arts movie scene in cinematic history. If you look back at it, there was a lot of kung fu movies and karate movies and martial arts movies that are going on at specifically during that time period, late 60s, all through the 70s. But I think this one specifically, there's a little build to it. There's some excitement to it, having Chuck Norris in his cinematic debut. This is his first movie, being an actual world champion, or USA champion, karate champion. It was this huge thing to bring him face to face with Bruce Lee, regardless if it was in a movie scene or not, or in real life. The scene itself was shot amazingly, from the background sound effects to that epic fight music that's in the background that we'll talk about in just a bit. I love the dramatic phase zoom in and out shots that created this suspense between Norris and Lee. Even the first person point of view camera, which I loved, where they were throwing kicks and punches at the camera, which is a really cool effect and not something a lot of people were doing in 72 at this time. It just set the stage perfectly for these two to have this epic throwdown and showdown. For the fight itself, it starts with them allowing each other to warm up, which I thought was pretty hilarious, but also it's pretty honorable. This is honorable. This is what men do. Honorable men do this kind of thing. So they take off their top and they're there stretching out and warming up, and before they're about to fight, which I thought was pretty hilarious. This was actually one of the first movies that was dubbed an action comedy, which I thought was really great, which is really cool. So seeing this scene and allowing them to warm up, like two badasses, instead of just attacking each other, there was that respect there, which I thought was pretty cool. As the fight begins, for those of you that have never seen it, Chuck Norris, he starts off strong. He gets a better. Bruce Lee knocks him to the floor a couple of times, and he even gives him that Matumbo finger wave, the no, after he knocks him down, like, what were you expecting, fucker? Which I thought was great. All while wearing the old school Adidas shells, which is pretty cool. So you imagine Norris, covered in hair, by the way, for the hairiest man I've ever seen.
His shoulders were
in his white pant karate gi, and then wearing Adidas shells. Pretty cool, man. But once, of course, as the fight goes on, once Lee gets back to his feet and he begins bouncing around on his toes, and that cinematic music comes on in the background, everybody knew Norris was fucked. Lee kicks him, punches him, counters him, all while giving him his signature, that little wah every fucking other time. Yeah, that's what I think what makes the scene so great is Norris has this deep kind of grunt as he throws punches and kicks and blocks. But, Bruce Lee has these, really high pitched, sounds as he throws his punches and his kicks, and he connects, and he's getting more cocky and confident as he's winning, which is fucking great, man. Eventually, of course, Bruce Lee beats Norris down, even partially paralyzing him with some sort of dim mock kind of fucking shot to his shoulder, which is fucking crazy. Of course, Norris climbs up to his feet and, tries that one last strike, that one last push, to win. And Bruce Lee grabs him by the neck and ends up choking him out and breaking his neck. It's a once in a lifetime type of fight, regardless if it's in a movie fight. I mean, if it was in a movie, it's like Stallone fighting Arnold, or Tyson fighting Ali. It's one of those where you never expect to see happen, but it did, and it created this really great cinematic moment. And that's what makes this scene so great. It just puts two of the best, arguably two of the best, against each other and creating one of the most badass fight scene ever. It's one of my favorites. It's one I hold near and dear. Anybody who's into martial arts, this should be one of your favorites and one of your go-tos. What do y'all think about this scene?
Well, I think the build up to the fight is a bit intense. There's some gazing at each other fondly and slowly taking off of the jackets. It's very sensual. Wasn't sure what exactly was about to happen. The stretching is key, as you mentioned.
You got to make sure you put in the right Betamax, Joseph.
Yeah, I think I downloaded the wrong Dragon. The stretching, like you mentioned, it's key, man. You got to loosen up the muscles.
We're not young anymore.
Yeah, got to crack every bone in your body and make them protrude. The shoulder blades that Bruce Lee, I was like, Jesus, put those back into place before they pop out of the skin. Chuck Norris, Mr. Hairy Manback. Shout out to the Tool fans out there that might know that reference. I mean, that thing was hairy. You turned around, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
All that is man, Joseph.
I don't understand. I mean, as I love the scene, I didn't understand the fighting in front of the kittens. I mean, it's so wrong. Kittens, they're just
those cutaways to the cats. Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
leave the kittens alone.
It was a part of their little action comedy, that little humor, added humor. It's such an intense scene. And then you have a little kitten watching their fight. Running around them.
I think they cut away to the cat every time they fucked up. I think it was just an editing ploy where, like, a lot of times directors will do that. They'll use B footage to cutaways and stuff, so they could edit and fix.
Well, they probably got it from him, from that whoever the director was. Those scenes were awesome.
I do have to mention as I continue. It's a little windy and rainy outside right now, and I had some wind chimes outside, but it was adding. It would have added too much to the effect of Bob's story, and he would have had an automatic win. So I had to go outside and take those things down.
I just don't understand why y'all are trying to stifle my creativity. We had the wind chimes and Bruce Lee, and y'all took me down before.
He's playing drums on his desk, so now we have the drums. So.
So yeah, like Bob said, there's a lot of grunting, which is always a sign of a true fight. Bruce Lee grabs the chest hair. I mean, come on, you gotta shave, Chuck Norris. I think he once tried to shave his body, but the steel blades kept shattering against his skin, so it didn't work. The music score isn't bad, like I said, I mentioned with Randy's pick, didn't have music. Bob's, I don't think it really has. It does have some music, maybe more towards the end. The beginning is really that wind chime. What's that water thing? Waterfall type little, and the sound of the kittens. It works with it. It was really cool. The buildup was awesome. I really liked that slow motion sequence. That was really cool. It kind of actually highlighted Bruce Lee, because Bruce Lee's, it's shot slow. It was shown to us in like a slower motion, but Bruce Lee's kind of moving, a little bit fast. So you kind of see like, well, I mean, if it was played at regular speed, he might have been moving pretty fast, which only speaks to him and the greatness of his skill in martial arts.
Can I respond to that real quick? I love that you mentioned that. I love that you mentioned that. That's a great part of the scene where they slowed it down and it's slow motion. And then all of a sudden they picked it up to full speed, and fucking Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris were throwing it, kicking fast as hell, dude.
Yeah.
And blocking at the same time. So it was really cool how they slowed it down and then sped it right back up again. It had a great effect on them.
It was a good sequence. I gave that props. I did notice that there aren't really too many landed punches and kicks. And the ones that do land are exaggerated more for effect. And it's not a, it's just the way that the scene was shot. I think it was the build up to the fight was let's see what we got. I think it's 5 minutes into the actual scene that Bruce Lee just starts kicking his ass, and you see that he's in the movie. He's a far superior fighter. It just becomes a beatdown at that point. Bruce Lee's kicking his ass. You're right. Chuck's face is starting to get a little bit bloody and eventually, like you mentioned, he semi-paralyzes him, and then he meets his demise via the broken neck. I thought it was a cool little sequence with how at the end the respect. I guess you see that whole thing where he goes and gets his jacket and covers him, and he has that moment of like, oh, what the fuck did I just do? But hey, it was really cool. I just think that the build up to it was a little one-sided, I guess, if you want to. That's my complaint, because it was Bruce Lee and it was Chuck Norris, and it would have been really cool if like they had some back and forth. Maybe Bruce Lee got some damage, Of course, he wouldn't be Bruce Lee, I guess, if he got damaged. But you know, it would have been cool if there was some more back and forth and just not the beat down later that it ended up being by Bruce Lee. That's my beef.
Chuck Norris knocks him down, puts him on the ground like 3 or 4 times at the beginning of the fight.
But Bruce Lee never bleeds.
Yeah, and
he bled, and Enter the Dragon, he was bleeding from everywhere. He even licked his own blood.
This, of course, is a classic scene. I mean, Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, we grew up on them. I'm more of a fan of Walker, Texas Ranger, more specifically the Conan O'Brien Walker, Texas Ranger skits that we've grown to love. You know, there's some, like, if you can think of any, go ahead and shout about this scene.
The jumping off the stairs. Jump, kid, I'll catch you. No, I'm not gonna get into that. But go look those up on YouTube while you can.
Those are fun. The scene is like 10 minutes long, and you guys mentioned it already. It's about 2 or 3 minutes of stretching, and then another 2 minutes of squaring up and sort of dancing, getting the feel out. There's no pregame stretching in a fight. I understand this was, you know, a different time. This is karate, and it's a different type of style of fighting. Bruce Lee
karate, man.
Karate. They both have black belts. Bruce Lee is cracking his limbs, and Chuck Norris is doing like this gymkata or whatever. But one thing I really wanted to highlight, and you guys both talked about, is Chuck Norris's 70s body hair. I mean, his hair was going like in every direction. It was like a whirlwind in the front, and he had like a massive shoulder hair, which you don't really see a lot
of.
It
looked like a tattoo. Yeah. It honestly looked like a tattoo at first.
I thought it was like a mullet, but I was like, no, that's his shoulder hair. I mean, that was, you know, Joseph mentioned this. At one point, Bruce Lee grabs a tuft of Chuck Norris's chest hair, which now serves as Chuck Norris's toupee, by the way. But I thought that was a funny scene. Extended slow-mos, the cutaways, we mentioned that. I felt one thing I did notice that I felt was kind of off was there are no bruises or blood until like finally the 8th kick to Chuck Norris's face. Chuck Norris got kicked in the face several times. It wasn't until like the 8th kick, and there was just a little trickle of blood, like he fell off his bicycle. There was not a lot of blood and bruises until the very end. Very one-sided. Bruce had, you know, I think Bruce Lee had better fights against Bolo Young, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and a whole host of others. You know, but I just don't know.
Kareem.
I think this was just one-sided. Two legends. I could watch them stretch for 10 minutes if you want to, you know, but it was just not, I don't know. I felt that the fight was a little slow, and it was a little one-sided with Bruce Lee. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I feel like for both of y'all too, this scene, the buildup in the movie is Chuck Norris, you know, he flies out to Japan, and he's the fucking badass. Like he gets in a couple of fights, like he's the fucking man. They make him seem like he's the badass and he's unstoppable and all. He's just the badass coming over here to you know, stop Bruce Lee and to put him in his place. And what as the storyline goes. So like there was a huge buildup for him already for the thing. So I know Joe said like, it's a little lacking, and they just really highlighted Bruce Lee. Really, they highlighted the shit out of Chuck Norris's character throughout the movie. And then at the end, when they finally meet, it was like, oh shit, now it's going down, which I thought was really, really good.
Do you think there are any karate movies or karate fights that rival it? I think if
Steven Seagal had fought against Jean-Claude Van Damme, like you say, that would have been something that could really rival it. Van Damme versus Van Damme and was double impact. That was kind of funny, but I don't know. I don't know if there's one that could rival it. Like I said, if we had that Stallone versus Arnold kind of moment in a movie where they fought against each other, I think that would have been right up there, or if not at the same level.
By chance, do any of y'all recall or remember, did Jet Li ever do a movie with Jackie Chan? Because remember, like, you know, Jackie Chan, we've mentioned, even later on, you know, later into his career, he was still doing kick-ass stunt work. Even in the Rush Hour movies, you know, he was fighting stunt teams, doing work with his stunt team, still making it look really awesome. I believe Jet Li was around at the time, but I don't think they ever did a movie. And I think they did
the Forbidden Kingdom.
Did they have a fight scene? And if they did, shame on us, I guess, because fuck, I didn't realize.
I think they did.
Because that that would have been cool to see.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I know Jet Li did fight, you know, Martin Riggs and
and
Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon 4, so that's kind of good. I mean, like
Mel Gibson got his ass kicked.
Mel Gibson,
he tried. He put up a fight.
Murtaugh got his ass kicked. Yeah, Mel Gibson put up more of the fight. But Mel Gibson himself is a big action star. So him going against Jet Li, that was actually pretty cool to see.
But I guess as far as like what did you say? You said martial arts fights. I don't know. Karate Kid Part 1.
You did Best of the Best, the final scene with Han.
Yeah,
that was great.
Or
That's true.
Han? Yeah, that's a good one. But that was a good one. They did fight in the Forbidden Kingdom, so
we'll have to look that one up.
We should mention that.
We did. I'm surprised that nobody mentioned. Not taking away from my pick, and I know we got to go to Joseph's pick, but nobody picked the Jean-Claude Van Damme fight. That's one of the first ones that came to mind, and I was like, you know what? Let me check out Kickboxer. But they're both, besides dipping their fists in glass, what I thought was badass. They're both dressed in like Native American garb, and their ass are hanging out. So I was like, it didn't really have that badassness that I thought it had when I was younger.
I was trying to look for a Van Damme fight too, and I don't really. I mean, I thought he had some great scenes, but nothing really stood out to me. I was really going to try to champion the final scene in Bloodsport, but it was just too theatric for me with the yelling, being blind,
the cry. It was, and then the slow motion, spinning back kick.
Yeah, but anyway, Joseph, you're up. What do you got?
Joseph, finish it off.
All right, so I went with the trailer fight scene in Kill Bill Volume 2. One that I mentioned earlier when we were talking about honorable mentions, I thought about was the opening scene in Kill Bill 1 between the bride and Vanetta Green, I believe was her name.
That was a good one, yeah.
It was a great opening scene. I mean, that set the tone for the movie. Great little throwdown that I think was at least 3 minutes. So that was on my list of honorable mentions. I didn't want to mention it then because I didn't want to give too much into what I was going to pick. But anyway, trailer fight scene in Kill Bill Volume 2 between the bride and Ellie Driver. At this point in the movie, the bride is at her most vulnerable. She was buried alive by Ellie. She climbed out, walked through, some desert land to eventually get back to Bud's trailer. I'm not going to give you everything of the backstory. I would love for you to go see it. If for some reason you haven't seen it, I know we have because we're big Tarantino buffs. So she arrives to see Ellie, the one of the out of the group in the movie that she hates the most. She arrives to find her there with Bud. Later on, if you've seen, before this fight gets started, Ellie has just killed Bill's brother. So this speaks to the character of Ellie Driver. This chick's evil. She's the new, love interest of Bud, and she basically just killed and murdered his brother. So this chick's fucking evil. You want her to suffer. Anyway, the start of this fight kicks off with the bride flying in through a super kick. I don't really know how she pulled that off, but Ellie opens the door to come out of the trailer and gets sent right back in with the super kick from the bride. I mean, this fight has and from there it's on. This fight has everything: trailer destroying, tobacco spit throwing, hair pulling, toilet dunking, samurai sword throwdown, and a masterpiece of stunt work and choreography. I'm sorry, I had to do that. Being a Tarantino fan and fans that we all know that Zoe Bell, the great Zoe Bell, does most, if not all, of Uma's stunt work. This is to say that Uma doesn't hold her own when she does her own stuff. But the way that this scene was shot, you can tell that this fight just it flows smoothly. There's a real awesome split screen double chest kick early on in the fight that sends them both to the ground. Great camera work. I loved it because most of it is just a great full-on scene, but this was a real nice, if you're not familiar with it, the two girls go throw chest kicks at each other and they land them simultaneously and send each other back. It's really great stuff. There's weapon use, awesome, simple weapon use, not necessarily like the gun work, but this is pretty much anything you can find around the trailer. I think the bride grabs an antenna, gets into a little sword play because if you're not too familiar with the scene, Ellie has just arrived and killed Bud to take the sword that belonged to the bride. Anyway, she uses an antenna as a bit of a sword play. She grabs a lamp, smashes it against her head. I think even a guitar. It's got the punching, it's got the brutality, the kick and throw through the bathroom wall, the toilet dunk. I love that camera angle. It's really great stuff. I mean, this thing's brutal. Eventually, Ellie gets the upper hand, tries to get the sword. The bride at this point finds Bud's sword. The whole backstory I'm not going to get into. But this fight, I mean, it's awesome. It's got great brutality, plenty of not too bloody, but enough to show like, hey, these girls are really throwing some serious blows at each other. I think there's a scene where Ellie she's wearing heels and she steps on the bride's foot, and I'm like, that shit hurt me just seeing it. At the end of it, when it's all said and done, you think we're going to get to this sword fight that we're, been waiting to see, because the build up to this scene, these two, they hate each other. And you just, we've been waiting for this moment to happen. The fight does. And we think we're going to get this sword fight at the end when eventually the bride or Beatrix at this point, depending on if you've seen the movie, somebody needs to hit the beat button. Maybe when I said Beatrix, I don't know. But she gets the sword and you think we're going to have this awesome sword fight, and it ends just like that. The bride plucks out Ellie's eye, which might not be that big of a deal. I mean, it is a big deal. You're getting your eye fucking plucked out. But if you know the backstory, Ellie only has one fucking eye left. So she's basically left blind at the end to fend for herself. I mean, it's just, that in itself is destroying. She fucked her up. I mean, by beating her up, they went at each other, but to end it like that, to leave the opponent, fending blindly throughout the trailer with a black mamba in the trailer, that's a whole another part. I'm not going to get into that. Please go out there and watch the movie. For some reason you haven't seen it. It's a scene that we all waited for, finally happened. And I do think we got what we wanted to see. I think we were satisfied in this final meetup. I think it was about 6 minutes long, but I think it was a good, 6-minute fight. What helps is there's potentially some animosity that we learned between the two actresses. So maybe added to it, maybe, secretly some of these shoves and kicks. And I know it was some mostly stunt work, but it just kind of helped the scene. And I really think it pushed it to another level. That's my pick, guys. How about you?
I love Tarantino. Love Kill Bill, both volumes. I was I was watching all the fight scenes in both Kill Bill movies, and I think this one was probably the best one. I love the fights between O-Ren, Go-Go, the Crazy 88. And
I'm sorry, and I loved those scenes. Yeah, I just thought it was more weapon play, and I tried to stay away from that. I think we all tried to stay away from like weapons and sports type stuff. I think we all tried to do that, and that's why I didn't go with maybe like the whole sword fight at the restaurants and the stuff with Go-Go, even though they were really awesome. Continue.
Although Keith David's knee can be considered a weapon of mass destruction. I thought this was probably one of the best fight scenes, or best between two non-fighters or actors known more for other roles. I was really impressed with Daryl Hannah and her. They really did a great job, or I should say Quentin Tarantino really did a great job in building the character to be despicable. I mean, she killed her master, Pai Mai. She killed Bud with the black mom. What I love about this movie is that it's so empowering to women that even the male bad guys, they don't get these cool fight scenes. I mean, Bud is killed by the black mamba. Bill is killed by the five the Dim Mak. Yeah. Bill is killed rather handily as well. And then the Crazy 88, of course, are all destroyed during a great fight scene, but they're not really putting up a fight. It's the fight between the women that are back and forth with Vernita, with is it Ellie or Elle? Elle, right?
It's Ellie. I think he says, I've always known it to be Ellie Driver.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but they do say, I mean, she calls her L.
She refers to her as L.
Calls her B. In the scene, they say L, and she says B, so it doesn't matter. So like said, it's coachy.
It does. So with Elle Driver and Beatrix Kiddo, I got to gain my thoughts back. I thought that in this scene, the space scene played a huge role. The trailer home, you wouldn't expect such a great fight to happen in a trailer home. It was like when you're in remedial math class in high school and you're shunned to the portable buildings, like you're not smart enough for air condition and clean water. That's the kind of building they fought in, And they just did great with that little cramped space. It's almost as if you had no excuse not to fight closely. I love the scene where Elle Driver pulls up the katana blade and she couldn't get the sword out because she hits the top of she hits the ceiling because they're in such a confined area. I love the sound effects, the music, the vitriol, the dirt, the mess, the toilets, the tobacco juice. I thought this was one of Quentin Tarantino's best fight scenes. I do think, however, that it almost gets wrapped up in a whole movie of just stylistic fight scenes. And I mean, kudos to Daryl Hannah and to Uma Thurman, because they really pulled the crap out of this. And I know, you could go one angle and say they both had stunt women as a lean over, where Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris didn't, Roddy Piper and Keith David didn't. But if you want to get technical, yes, they did have a stunt woman as the people taking the fall, but whatever. It's still a great scene. I felt that some of it gets a little caught up. It gets a little wrapped up. What my I guess you could say beef with this scene is that, I don't know. I felt that it was a little too stylistic, but it was meant to be something that almost absorbed us in there, because I said it was a very confined space. It was a very tiny area, and there was a lot of cool shit that went on. So it's a great pick. And I wanted to say that the Vernita Green fight was better, but man, I have to give this one the edge. I don't think it's the best fight scene. And of course there are, little tricks. This is 2003 when this movie came out. So there's more advancements than in 1989 than 1972. But I mean, you use that to your advantage, and it's just a killer scene. Bob?
Yeah, another great scene. When you first mentioned that you're going to go with Kill Bill, scene from Kill Bill, I honestly thought you were going to go with the Crazy 88 scene, which in itself is another crazy, great, awesome scene. If I was choosing between the two, I would maybe say it's a toss-up. I may have gone with the Crazy 88 scene because of all like the over the top, the cutting off of the limbs and all the people she has to fight and stuff like that. But I love how I love how in this scene, we have to go back to talking about the trailer scene, because in the Crazy 88 scene, they're having this big samurai fight inside a bar, you know what I mean? There's so much open space. And then to have a quote unquote samurai sword fight in this little trailer between two badass women, it kind of puts everything, it's got a really cool context, and it's a really cool situational type of scene. I really liked it, especially the toilet scene, another bathroom scene, Randy, the toilet scene where they dunk Ellie's face in the toilet and they're shooting from that camera angle, very stylistic. I could see how Randy said it was a little over the top. I can see that, the eye gouge is the way to end. If anybody knows how bad an eye gouge is, ask LeBron James in the playoffs. See him rolling around left and right. That shit hurts. Obviously, not as much as cramps when the air conditioning's off. But I mean,
talk about great acting,
killer. Yeah. We'll say this, and I think any great action scene, there's got to be that build up and that fight. I really do feel like this one has it to an extent, but then it gets cut off. I love this scene, but the biggest problem I had was there was a point in this scene where I feel like every great action scene should have this build up, you know what I mean? The stare down, the build up, the fight starts, and it's go time, it should have this build to this climax. And I felt like the scene started to do that, and they start fighting and everything's going on, and man, the tempo and everything, everything's built up, and then they pause for about a minute to talk about how Elle killed Beatrix Master by poisoning his fish. I really do think it kind of slows the tempo and slows the tone, and it just kind of like kills the mood a little bit, because I felt like there was so much, like everybody's on the edge of their seat and there's so much like, adrenaline pumping because they're fighting and it's going, and then they stop it to give this little, subplot that, oh yeah, this is how I killed. That's the one thing that really bothered me. And I remember watching and I was like, why would they do that? Like, why didn't they do that like at the beginning? And then they just start going at it. You know what I mean? I felt like throwing that in the middle of the fight really, I think pulls it back or holds it back a little bit.
Two important notes I want to make about two of the with Pei Mai eating the fish and dying. What a vicious way to go. Cause I know, cause I've eaten at Luby's before, so I know how he felt after, that Luann platter. If it hits you wrong, it fucking hurts. Also, Joseph, you mentioned that Elle and Beatrix had the most animosity towards each other. What better way to say fuck you than saying, you know what, death is too good for you. I'm going to fucking blind you and you're going to be completely lost. You're going to wish you were dead, especially with a black mamba and then total darkness, people's biggest fears, all wrapped in one small little trailer house. I mean, I thought it was brilliant and intense.
And I know there is that thing, because a part of me does want to say like, okay, we're going to get this sword battle, the whole story, the movie in a whole, where she, in part one, where she gets the sword and she gets Hanzo to make the sword. It's a whole big thing. If you for some reason haven't seen this movie, please go out and see it. So it's this whole build up to where she's got this sword, but Ellie's got it. She finds Bud's sword, with the funny story with not in El Paso, it isn't. In El Paso, it got me $200, but they do cross swords for like 10 seconds staring at each other. There's that's
the wrong Betamax movie, Joseph.
So they have that moment, and you're right, she in an instant, it ends with the pluck of the eye. But when you look at it as a whole, it's like, were they really supposed to have this huge sword swinging battle like this she had against the Crazy 88 in the confined spaces of the trailer? No, what was great was, what I liked about it so much was the whole CQC thing, that's close quarter combat for all you Metal Gear fans. It was really awesome. You're not going to have like a freaking sword whipping, ting, ting, ting fight in the trailer. And so I thought it was really cool. everything that was at their disposal.
Those were your wind chimes again.
I needed it. If I had picked the other scene between her and Oren, then maybe, because they had the little waterfall going on. But no, that was a nice swordplay one, so I didn't want to go with that. I really wanted to stick to some punches and kicks, but I really dug. I mean, obviously we're Tarantino fans. I'm not gonna bust you about that one, because I know you know what I would say.
Yeah, you're gonna mention I like feet or some shit like that.
No, but I mean,
I thought he was gonna say Selena.
Yeah, I was, but you mentioned it. But no, we love that. I mean, at least I know you guys think it's an awesome. We all think they're awesome scenes. They're all great scenes and great movies. Sometimes, like you mentioned, like I even thought about the first opening scene too, because it really set the tone for this movie. When I as a fan of Tarantino, I was already really excited to see the movie, and then that opening scene kicked off, and I was just like, okay, this is going to be great. And it was a great two-part movie.
It's classic, and don't knock it, guys, because there's this great fight scene in Selena where the dad kicks the boyfriend off the bus. Fucking a fist flying everywhere. It's all set to Bitty Bitty Bomb Bomb in the background. Guys, we picked movies that are definite classics, good directors, actors that are a good mix. Why, in your opinion, I guess the most recent movie was from 2003. How come none of us chose anything within the past 5, 6, 7 years?
I think the theatrics have gone up tenfold. There's a lot of CGI and a lot of explosions and a lot of that kind of shit. Fast and the Furious 12 or whatever the fuck they're on. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little too over the top and overdone. Just my personal opinion. I've always been a fan of movies, and specifically action movies that did things the old school way, not the CGI in front of a green screen. I've never really been a fan of CGI and green screen. Now, if it's something like sci-fi, obviously they're gonna have to use something like that. But just for a straight up action movie or a fight scene, doing it in front of a green screen just doesn't really. I mean, it doesn't really do it for me.
At first, it was a little difficult to find a scene, and this is why we kind of had to go back to the older movies, because I in researching, I wanted to look up movie scenes. You can go online and read what other people believe are, the top, 20 fight scenes. And so you can watch these videos on YouTube. And I did, I checked some out to remind myself, get familiar, get familiar with stuff from the past. But a lot of what I saw was like, I don't want to say they were super new movies, but they're definitely like movies that I just haven't seen. And a lot of them have these like great fighting scenes, and they're more overseas films, I guess, movies that didn't have a release in the United States, or just they're not in the English language. So personally, I don't want to read a movie. I want to watch it. So I mean, if it's dubbed, I'll check it out. But that kind of worked against me. I watched the scenes, but I didn't want to pick a movie that I didn't have like at least knowledge of the story. So I couldn't pick one of these newer scenes with these like, crazy stuff that, like Bob mentioned, a little bit of green screen, a little bit, over cables, and, because that stuff's prevalent now. I couldn't do that. So that's kind of, I guess, why we had to go back to, the older stuff, or early 2000s, I guess.
The John Wick fight scenes are good.
I love those too.
Those are good. Yeah, those are great. I know there's a lot of gunplay in those too, but his actual combat scenes are good.
We didn't mention the transporter either. Jason Statham.
That's a good one. Yeah,
he had some great fucking fight scenes, and it doesn't seem too over the top or over dramatic with the fight scenes itself.
But again, like a movie, I don't want to say older movie because it's in the 2000s, but it's not anything recent. There was a scene in I think it's chapter 2 John Wick where the fight scene with Ruby Rose, I don't know if you're familiar with it, in like a mirror, a hall of mirrors type thing. Mm-hmm. I thought about that one as well because it was more actual hand-to-hand combat than gunplay, but it was really small scene. So I was like, nah, it doesn't, as cool as it is, I think it only lasted like a minute. So I was like, no.
The 70s had some very raw fight scenes. I remember a movie I used to love watching. It was a Clint Eastwood movie called Any Which Way But Loose. And he plays a fighter. And at the end, he has this like huge brawl, and it's just fists. Just they're knocking each other through windows. It's one of those fights that it's almost like a video game. It goes like to stage. And they don't make them like that anymore. Everything is very quick. It's like people don't have the patience to watch a good tailored choreographed fight.
You know, one thing we didn't mention was Roadhouse. Nobody mentioned fucking Roadhouse.
Yeah, Roadhouse.
Patrick Swayze throwing kicks and not going to fuck at everybody. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think everybody wants nowadays, like it seems like the summer box office blockbuster hits are all these big explosions, CGI, all this shit. You know, it's all light show and no substance. You know what I mean? And I've always been I'm more into the substance part of that. I think that's why I'm a big Tarantino fan. Because I mean, there's a lot of great dialogue and there's a lot of character development and shit like that. Nowadays, it seems like the storyline may not fit. Like, I don't know. Sorry, I know it's off topic, but my son just watched Kong versus Godzilla, and that movie made zero fucking sense to me. Zero fucking sense. But it's all big fight scenes and explosions and, you know, Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, and all that shit's going on, right? Big battles. And, you know, that's all anybody really cares about. But it just made zero sense to me, to be honest with you.
Real quick, since I still haven't gotten a chance to see it, you've seen the new Mortal Kombat movie. How are those fighting scenes?
Those fighting scenes were badass, but they kind of went a little old school because they're a little bloody, a little gory. They're a little over the top when it comes to that. But I think it fits because it kind of ties to the video game, how the video game got real gory at certain points. So it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool. Again, awesome. It's more like, you know, it has like it's sci-fi kind of shit. It does have some good, you know, punching, but a lot of it's, you know, sci-fi-esque, you know what I mean? CGI, shit like that.
I think one of you mentioned the Avengers earlier. I was trying to think of a good Avengers fight. I remember there was, I think it was Captain America and the Winter Soldier versus Iron Man. I was going to say three-way, but I didn't want Bob to say that I got the
Betamax.
But that fight was good.
There's that one, and then there's actually one between him, Captain America, that people do talk about as far as new one, these Avengers movies. There's a scene in the Captain America, the Winter Soldier, where he's fighting the Winter Soldier out on a highway, and it's like maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, but it's you know, hand-to-hand combat, and it's pretty good. I mean, you can tell they had to get the choreography down for that one. So
there's some good stuff out there, but it's just the old stuff. I don't know if it's the rawness or if it's like you could see when a punch slips or you could see the mistakes. It's just something about that old school stuff that I think we all appreciate. And I think it's the actors too. I think just the charismatic actors. And, you know, there's going to be fight scenes till the end of time. Like you said, Bob, they're making another Fast and the Furious. So, you know, The Rock and whoever they bring on now, John Cena, you know, there's going to be a fight scene between them.
Is it more furious? More furious, sir?
If family is involved, then there's going to be a problem.
There was like a meme or something online that they're trying to do. Universal's trying to do a Fast and the Furious and Jurassic Park crossover. And I
saw that.
If they try to pull something stupid like that, oh my god! Dude.
I hope not.
It's all money. The thing is, it's all a fucking money grab, man. These guys, there's zero substance to any of these movies.
I think I tuned out after Fast 5 was good. I've seen maybe like 3 out of the whatever 10 movies they have, but there's
only 3 out of 10. But you watch both seasons of Selena.
That's our show. Listeners, we'd like to hear from you. What is your favorite fight scene? What scenes did we not mention? Most importantly, let us know what you think about the show. You may reach us at formidableopponents@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter at fopponents, and also follow us on Instagram at formidable_opponents. We post videos, we post funny stuff. Check us out. Please follow us. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating, give us a score. We'd love to hear from you. And next week, speaking of Tarantino, we will be arguing which is the best Tarantino scene. So look for that in the future. So for Bob and Joseph, this is Randall. We'll see you guys next week.
Chuck Norris doesn't sleep. He only waits.